about like it'd be kind of funny if I used to think like it'd be funny if you had some company and then they didn't quite like you like used to peace out to everyone and then they're right back. So, but I had just made some content and I just wanted to make a real quick piece and also a little bit of an announcement. Not nothing crazy, not but just not a pitch, but just an announcement. But I was thinking I had an idea, and then one thing I wanted to do a couple of days ago was that I want to talk about how your I think that your body communicates like so like some people would say that when you like some people would say that like if you've ever been on hard times, like anyone watching this, if you've ever really been on hard times, it's actually uncanny how you'll a lot of times you'll get blessings right when you need it. Like someone may know what I'm talking about. If you've ever been outside of a job, outside of a lease, outside of a car, outside of a safe place, outside of the place where you're from, outside of family, outside of anything, it's strange how a lot of times you'll actually get like somebody will offer you food, right? Like one of the most humbling things a person can do, one of the most spiritual too, and the greatest, but also the difficult things a person can do would be to have to subsist on alms. That means like to beg or like to panhandle. But one of the most brilliant people I've ever met is like in my area. I know a person. I know a lot of people that are on the street. I always had like even since I was a kid. I always like for some reason I always got a lot of my friends when I grew up when I was a kid, all the way back to about kindergarten until all the way through school, a lot of my friends were actually dangerous people. Like the kids, like the kids in school that like my best friend in life, right? My best friend in elementary school. Then I moved away. He would keep up with me in middle school. He would keep up with me in high school, and he would keep up with me as we were young adults. As he had become a jazz musician by then. By the time we were adults, and he kept up with me even as I was not a popular person when I was young. I was obscure, but I was content to be like that because I valued privacy even before social media, and I valued that. But we influenced one another. Like I put him up on basketball and skateboarding, and then we both became good as hell at basketball. He became better than me at skateboarding, and then he segued some of that confidence into music and some of that ability to like practice and get better that we both made for each other by competing. He took that to be a musician, but we were all the way back in elementary school. He would be in them special classes because his behavior, he was behaviorally challenged because he was in a single parent household even in the beginning of elementary, and his father had did some extreme things like in front of him, I think, that I just barely heard about. But I'm just saying that he could be appreciated as very dangerous to other kids, but we had like a natural chemistry. And even one time when we came to blows, like we were later, he was a wrestler. We came to blows at the end of elementary because I tripped over him playing baseball. All he did was just put me in a lock. Like he put me in a wrestling lock because he didn't want to hurt me, but he also didn't want to get hurt by me or to have to fight me. So he locked me up like that. But that's an example of how like I had a lot of friends that were there were some real actual like kind of like dangerous people, like the kids in class that everybody wouldn't like, but also that they had like problems even by the time they were children, they already had real problems. I would already get along with them somehow, and my mom told me that that had been the case, like even about stuff I don't remember. Um, but the only reason I referenced that was damn, I forgot why I referenced that. But if you've ever been on really hard times, you'll notice that if you've ever been on really hard times, you'll notice that you always get cared for. So I know a lot of people. I've always known a lot of people from rough backgrounds, just because I tend to like to gravitate towards people and get along with people. But I also don't like to get mixed in people's life or have them mixed in my life. So I'm a little bit like I'm very honest, but I'm also a little bit brief with people, even to be superficial. But it's actually more so out of respect because I don't want to trip on anybody or have anybody trip over me or get anybody caught up or get caught up in shit. So I just stay off of people. But I actually know people that live by panhandling, and I was sometimes I'll ask a brother, like how do you actually do it? Like how do you go about how do you survive? Like sometimes people come up to me like, hey man, do you know where you get food around here? And I'll point them out to like a library because like where I'm at, you got a library, and it explains where you can get food on any day of the week. So anybody that would be on hard times, libraries are really decent place. One is that if you're ever on hard times and you need like a charging of your phone and stuff like that, one of the best places hands down over the country is Starbucks. I had appreciated that when traveling this summer, and then I saw content creators make that statement. But Starbucks, like, if say you had less than $1, right? You had maybe you had $1.50, right? And you wanted to go somewhere because you needed to charge, you actually couldn't go somewhere like a lot of places, like really like some places that where you could shop that cheap, like some burger places, you can't get a charger anymore. But if you went to Starbucks, you could buy string cheese. They sell string cheese at Starbucks. It's probably like less than $1. That's probably one of the cheapest things they got there. If you sit there and get string cheese and you ask for a cup of water, you're good to go to sit in Starbucks, and you can charge your whole phone if you need to, and not like have to get not have to like have something rude happen. But then also another place that's great if you're on hard times is libraries, because in a library you have a lot of statured people, so you have like a lot of well-to-do people, and that would run off like if you were like afraid about lingering somewhere. Like anywhere is dangerous than hell nowadays, but a library can be a more decent place because you got children there, you got respectable people there, so the same kind of bullshit likely wouldn't have to happen at a library the same way as it could happen some other place. So a library can be very good, and they have also a lot of really good resources at libraries. Like if you just bring your, I'd recommend for anyone, whether you're on hard times or not, go to a library and take a picture of actual the advertisement board at a library, and you can get some real opportunities for like for shelter, for food, and even like cool things like creativity, anything you're into. You can get some real opportunities at a library board. And that too, if you find a cafe, like you're more like chain, like high-end chain coffee places, they have advertising boards, and they'll have sometimes they'll have some cool stuff there, but not as much. But if you find like a advertise like a cafe, like a cafe that been around for a while, and they kind of got like real clientele and like real people that mess with that, but like people that are seasoned, you can find some dope looks like for living accommodations, or like improv things, comedy things, hip hop things, really cool look. And I'm probably not original saying that, but I just wanted to offer a little bit of game with that. But I was there also, and I met a person that panhandle around there, and he was telling me like how he go about it, and he was saying that like he doesn't know how he does it, but he knows when it's okay to do one thing and not. But I was saying is that that's one of the most humbling things you can do, and also the things that make you the strongest person is that if you're humble enough to beg for something, like in front of strangers, that can really get you traction. And like some people, I made different references in here that I have a little bit of real training. Like I actually have some military training, and someone would wonder like how do you actually have military training? And so I'll just say that when I was a very young man, I was looking for work. I was already like barely out of high school. I was having a job, and I learned about faith, and I was going to a church. And then something just told me, I drove by like a pizza place that I go by a lot on the bus, like when I was looking for jobs. And it wasn't as easy to find jobs back then because you didn't have like Monster and Indeed like that, but you could still do stuff. But someone's just like, damn it, go there. I just had an idea, just damn it, go there. And I went to a pizza place, and years later, I become a delivery driver there, and I'd be viable there late years later as a driver. But at that first time, they were like, "Hey man, that's cool, man. So you wanna?" I was like, "Damn, I know I'm about to start at the bottom, so they're probably gonna have me like saucing pizza and stuff like that." Nah, man, we need you to hold this sign on the corner like that. Just go out there on the corner, not far away from your high school where you grew up, and all your high school friends that are off to college and stuff, when they're back in the neighborhood, they're about to see you right there on the corner, and we need you to hold this sign so people know it's good to go on Tuesdays for the 5.99 special like that. Good to go like that. Stand out there like that. So that's what they did. They put me on blast like that as a very out of high school. But somehow something I just had like sometimes you have like some blessings you don't know. And I was actually confident, sturdy enough to just hold out there with the damn sign like that. And I wasn't embarrassed. Somehow I wasn't embarrassed. I was a little bit bold about it. I was actually a little bit proud. Somehow I was proud holding the sign right now, far away from my high school. Hey, check out 5.99. But then some actual like some military people drove by, and they're like, damn man, you kind of ballsy how you did that like that. Man, what about this other shit over here? So I got off into like I got off into some training when I was young, but when I got in that training venue, it was I was getting isolated by, I don't know if anyone's ever heard of this, but like sometimes in if you like I experienced a certain thing where like more recently, like if I went to get my motorcycle license this summer, and I first I actually got a motorcycle before I even had the training permit for a motorcycle, because like damn, I'm trying to get me a motorcycle, I could make money with it. And I got some respect from people at like a high-end motorcycle dealership based on my profession and some of the way I looked on paper. But then I signed up for one venue. I paid for that. It was a no, did I pay for that? I think I paid for that, and it was expensive than shit. And dude ripped me off like that. He was like, I won't say how it happened, but I got ripped the hell off on a motorcycle training, and then I had got help to get training by another one. The first one had been like in my area. If you Google motorcycle training, one of the trending one was this one that really completely blew me up like that. They did me hella bogus how they did things like that. Oh yeah, man, why don't you come this date? But also the website had been janky, so I wasn't up to speed with the training, right? Oh man, we're about to close in 5 minutes. Why don't you run downtown on Friday night and try to take the test if you can? So I went down there, and I was like, but what if I don't pass the test? Well, you'll probably pass it because you actually don't need to study for it. But if you get past it or you don't, just come back tomorrow. Then I come back tomorrow. Oh yeah, man. So I own the school, man, but my dad had got sick, man. So I'm not gonna be able to train your ass and stuff, man. But there's also no refund, man. Sorry about that, man. Fuck me right out of like however pay for a motorcycle training. Then after that, I went to a training with some state troopers, and they when they were training us, man, they had us like they already got their favorites. Like they were rude since the first time I met there, and I was already on their bad side since the first time I got there because I'm overcoming life. I'm overcoming setbacks, bogus ass vehicles that got sold to me, bogus ass training, bogus ass family, bogus ass everything. But I still somehow made it here with my own damn motorcycle. Thank you very much. But they're ruder than shit that whole time. So it's very, very difficult to be trained by people that don't respect you. It is very difficult because there's something about the dynamic of training. And then the only thing worse than getting trained by someone that doesn't respect you is getting trained by someone that kiss your ass because then they're not tough enough on you. So you actually had like people in my training venue that they hadn't been as sturdy around bikes because I grew up around all getting up and down bikes. So a motorcycle I had a feeling for a motorcycle, but you got people that were like, they were very iffy that whole time. And then like when they tested us, they were you could tell that they had a little bit of a bent like how they engage. It's just how they at least how they were socializing with us. You could tell that there was a bent, but it played out in that it was a less than favorable training experience. And then I had something similar what happened with the bartending. So I'm saying is that when you're a person that's that is a marginal person, I've been appreciably marginal my whole life. When you get in training venues, people aren't necessarily happy to train you. Like people have made statements like that. Like Dr. Umar Johnson has made statements that it's very difficult for children of color in the public school system because a lot of the main constituents of teachers in the public school system, they're not of the same demographic background as the students, but also imminently and likely their children can be at odds or in competition at least with the children of color. So on a conscious, subconscious, or unconscious level, there's a little bit of a sabotaging of the dynamic for children of color when they're getting trained with people that still aspire to ascribe and apologize for the status quo, even as it is overlaid upon and it marginalizes people. So it's a conflict of interest sometimes. If you get trained by somebody that doesn't have your interest, that's a conflict of interest. So now I can appreciate that and I can see that for what it is now. But back when I joined the military, when I was thinking about joining the military, I had the actual same thing happen. But also I was sequestered with these people, and I would get isolated by the instructors, and the instructors like, hey, I'm trying to let you know. He's like, hey man, check this out, man. I'm trying to pop your heart. I want to see if I can make your heart pop. I just want to let you know that I'm trying to pop your heart. And cause like you're the type of person to get motherfucker killed. And I know you're with the hoorah and stuff like that, but I want you to know that whole time I'm trying to pop your heart like that, you like that. They'll say shit like that to me when I was in the training like that. And then just other stupid shit that I was interested in following the spirit because I'll go to church. My church was it was souls at any cost was the mission, and the mission was to train disciples to go throughout the Twin Cities and the nations to be a light to those in darkness. So I figured that the darkest place would be like the armed services and what they got going on. So by that time I was nonviolent, and the whole time I was in the training, I actually didn't even give a damn about guns. I'm in the damn training thing. Actually not interested in guns because I hadn't been interested in guns since I got in a fight in high school, and I it almost went like really bad. Like, I won the fight, but it could have the backlash, I could have got hurt. And then I actually started reading like it. I started reading self-help books with the person that was friends with the person I fought, and otherwise would have fucked me over. But I knew him well, and we were like we encouraged. He encouraged me to read books, and he got me like a taste for reading books back then. And I read some of these books that explained what anger is. So like anger is actually fear. So like the same way that you would corner a animal and it gets ferocious like that, that's what's happening when you get that's what's happening when you get angry, is that you're feeling a loss of power. It makes you feel angry like that. But if you can see something, it changes the process. So once I saw that, I stopped experiencing anger the same way after that. But also just wasn't into guns and stuff like that. Even by the time I was in the military, I was never even like I was actually there. I was there to be. Think about this, right? Okay, if you're gonna fight someone, right? Okay, like what if you're in a fight, right? If you're in a war, right? Who could potentially be the just want to keep rolling with this and shout out to right now I'm riffing on the brother had said go back to Africa, and this ain't a shot at that brother. That's actually just in a person's opinion, and it's actually really okay to have opinion. Like that's one thing too, is that like we're a little bit like too politically correct, and so it's actually okay to have an opinion. So like I'm presenting a lot of my background on camera, and like the fact I actually have ancestry from Africa. So someone watching this with their opinion is to go back to Africa. But it's like sometimes when you say go, that it actually, like if someone were to say, I think it might be better for you in Africa, or it might be better for me if you were in Africa. That's an opinion. But when you say go, that's like a command. I think there's only like five different kind of statements you can make: a command, a question, like an exclamation, and a couple other ones are the only kind of statements that are possible based on like the English language. But when you say go, that's like a command. So that's a little bit beyond that, breaches an opinion, but it's still actually just an opinion. Anything that you just statement on like a public free platform like YouTube, it's just an opinion. But it's not bad to have an opinion. The actual great Marlon Wayans weighed in on like the P Diddy situation today, and he said that it's actually okay for people to have opinion. It's not bad to have an opinion. And I think that some of this, because if you think about it, like sometimes you don't see the way that the history of the church impacts things. Like back in the day, the church would tell you that things just aren't okay. You're not okay, right? Like a lot of doctors say that now. Like the standpoint of, I think doctors, according to Osho, they're synonymous with, interchangeable with the religious clergy of old, and they've changed to keep pace with the sophistication of lifestyles, especially around birth control and different understanding of gender and orientation. The doctors and maybe access to different professions and social mobility. The doctors have came in to rein in people and put people in check the way that the church used to. But the doctors, their standpoint is that you're not okay. Their education and training is that you would not be okay before they ever met you or walked or understood what it's like to walk in your shoes. They already made up their mind that you're not okay like that. The doctors did. But then the church did the same thing back in the day, because the church, they understood everyone as a sinner. You're born into sin, right? Yeah, that's deep like that. You're born into sin. So you can't but sin. Because you're born into sin. So they're already rebuking you, are also affording you mercy, saving you as you haven't even got a chance to exist yet, or think yet, or be yet, or do anything, or learn from your mistakes too. Because how do you become great? How actually do you become righteous without learning something? You're right? You're the righteous person, right? You're the son of this and that. You're born. Were you born righteous, or did you? How could actually the greatest man who ever walked the earth? This is the fairy tale shit, man. I'm sorry. This shit had been a fairy tale like that. If we want to take the gloves off for as truth goes, how are you the greatest man and you never erred? That's almost actually more ridiculous than Santa Claus. Santa Claus, you could extrapolate whether Santa Claus is real or not, like in the different way we have blessings and stuff like that. You could meet a person that's passable as Santa Claus and has a similar lifestyle trajectory and reality as Santa Claus sooner than the greatest man, because how are you the greatest man that never erred? How could you be humble? How could you learn without having hard knocks, messing up like that? And it's interesting because you have a gray area in the story. So you have the greatest book was written by the greatest person who's also beyond name, the author, right? In the beginning was the greatest, and the greatest was the word, and the word was the greatest, is your holy book, right? The greatest author, right? The greatest book, but also leave a big old like gray areas. But what actually did happen to the greatest man when he was a young man? Where did he get his seasoning? How did he? So he's just here now, and he's gone, and he's in at one time. How do you see? The thing is that you can't get past the chicken pox without having the chicken pox. You can't get past a flu without having a flu. You can't get past the cold at all and still be a human being. You can't be called a human being and you don't have the cold virus in your body. It's appreciated that you can't be a human being and not have sin in your body, according to that line of reasoning of the holy books. But how may you come by being the greatest person to transcend sin without incurring sin? Because you'd actually have to experience something to transcend it. How can you transcend life, right and wrong, sin, good and bad, darkness and light? How can you speak to that, transcend that, and help other people transcend that if you didn't also incur that? Just the logic of that. Is that the same logic? Is it to tell someone to go to, you know? So I'm saying is that when you're saying, if you, so the actually, there's actually no difference between America and Africa in terms of the deeper underpinning of the banking system, because it's all owned by like probably the same few families. If that's, there might even be a better way than to say church. It's just the actual the stature families that we know next to nothing about. But Africa is actually, it's just all corporate now. It's just a different corporation. So what you're saying is go to a different part of the corporation, go to a different department, sir. Please go to a different department. Go to the Department of Africa. In this bogus ass fiat ass private property shit. And we can enjoy private property. I'm not trying to get all the way past private property so much as I like to do shit my way as I can afford to do so. But within that, just ethical, like within the game of it, right? So we got the game of it, and we know right and wrong in the game, and we know the game of the Constitution. Not to mock the Constitution, but all things can. There's something called game theory, so all things can be like a little bit of a game. But we know that things have been bogus. We know what they did to the people here. How do you actually feel entitled enough to call yourself an American without making amendment or without mending what happened to the people that were here? How can you be how can you be confident and congruent identifying as an American without at least attempting to atone, or at least understand the plight of the people who were here first? But if you do understand their plight, would you be willing to redress and then compensate them economically? And would that not also unseat your position and your standing to enjoy private property currently, if you actually made an equitable attempt to amend the people who had been here? My dad told me that my dad's also a citizen. If someone had wondered, my dad's a U.S. citizen, but he said that the board that granted him citizenship had been some Native American brothers and sisters in to the Southwest. So are you appealing my father? So I was born because of my father. He wasn't a citizen then, but my mother was, because my mother's a European American citizen since the 1800s, Irish German. But my father, my sire, he was not a citizen when I was born, but I was born a citizen, and he's now a citizen since before you made that comment. And he was granted his citizenship by a board of citizenship in New Mexico that was headed up by Native Americans, granting him a citizen. So are you appealing the decision of Native Americans, who are also Americans, to grant my father citizenship based on your being an American, but maybe not also Native American? But then that's the very arrogance, but also the cognitive dissonance that is a function of the church itself, and also a lot of our paradigm is the cognitive dissonance of that. For example, so you believe in the greatest man also, but you make a rude statement, but you also believe in the greatest man of love. Otherwise you couldn't live with your conscience. You couldn't actually sustain your conscience without a release to it. That release is called antinomianism. That's the way that people who are Christian and believe in the forgiveness of the cross also are comfortable with continuing to err if it comes to that, or continuing to affront other people, mock other people, hurt other people, because it's all covered under mercy and grace. That very license that ability to write your own check, to do anything, and also call on anything, and understand yourself as forgiven and continue to err comfortably, that's called antinomianism. But also that comes from the actual real principle and underpinning and dynamics of a faith system. Because okay, so in Islam, there's a word called shirk. It's kind of, I think it's similar. Like some words overlap. Like, and you have a word called kafir. That's a very derogatory. So I'm not calling anyone a kafir. Kafir is that's like a Dutch word that's popular in Africa, but it means kafir would be like a bum, but like worse than a bum. Like in would be like a degenerate. A kafir. That's the Afrikaans way they say it. That's like a degenerate. But I think that might be similar to the N word. I extrapolate and estimate and guess that the word kafir would be similar in etymological function and origin to the N word. It sounds similar to the N word, but its function is similar, but it may draw and tap the same current, but also be similar in etymology, kafir. But the in Islam they have a word called shirk. Shirk is English also has a word called shirk. That means like to throw off duty, to cast off duty, to dereliction. To dereliction of duty is the same thing as to to shirk off duty. But in Islam, so if someone were to be AWOL, I had a chance to medically leave the military, but if someone were AWOL, they shirked off duty. But those very same military members who are not AWOL, but they're also like practicing, say the faith of Christianity, they may also be shirking because in Islam, shirk means to make an associate of God. In both Islam and in India, like I'm referring to the deity of Kali in India, the feminine man. Some people appreciate that what we know of God might be more of grace, that is more feminine, that is more formidable um, than masculine in itself. But some of the standpoint of referring to God as Him, that may have to come with feudalism, in that in the to if you want to isolate, if you want to control advantage private property, freedom, but as you would understand private property, um I think it divides neater along the male line like that. If all of the inheritance went along the female line, that's actually the human history the world over, is that human beings are matriarchal, I think, at essence and at present. Even people in a system of patriarchy like the West, think we still exist and function largely matriarchal, but on paper, according to inheritance and lawfare, it divides neatly along the male lines. Like when you say second, like for example, my father is from Africa, and in Africa, they're matriarchal, but they also appreciate family deeper and subtler than a lot of times in the West. Like in the West, you have a nuclear family because we're an atomized society and we're encouraged and forced to be like that. But in America, you don't know very much about your relatives at all. I don't think, I don't at least. A lot of in the West, you don't know very much about your family. You don't know like a lot about even some of your cousins, like your second cousins, damn near. I don't even know if there's a such thing as third cousins, but whoever's like your cousins, like in your family, like very far at all removed, like maybe whoever your mom's cousins were. Imagine your mom's cousins, right? Your mom's cousins, their children. You wouldn't know nothing about them. I have like some of my cousins, like my mom's cousins' children. Some of them were like very successful, like like brilliant people. I understand, but they, I don't know if they're all with us still, but they've had a lot of successful people on my mom's side. But you don't know nothing about them, barely what they look like. There might have been like in a photo album from grandma, there was this reunion back in the 90s, and there go that one with the glasses. That had been that one, but you don't know nothing about them. But in Africa, they're much closer than that. Is that they know the history and the relationships. But like sometimes my dad would say like, in his culture, your maternal uncles, right? Your mother's brothers, they're very formative on the development of a boy. So like I recently got in trouble with the Harley because I had a new Harley, but there's a malfunction with the clutch while I was traveling, while I was also in jeopardy with the platform supporting myself on. And my uncle, he bailed me out like that. I'll just be straight up. My uncle bailed me the hell out, but it had been my mother's brother like that. So I'm just saying that that's like some of the. I don't know if anyone watching this would rock with that. Are your maternal uncles, are your mother's brother, if she has one, are they do they have a unique relationship to you? In Africa, that's appreciated as very, very significant. They understand some of the differences in male line and female line and how that impacts a person. In India, they can appreciate the different parts of your body that are inherited by your father versus your mother. Like I think your bone structure is more so similar to your father, and your flesh is more so similar to your mother, if I'm not mistaken. But then too, also in Judaism, your actual ethnicity and your your creed is from your mother, right? So if your mother is Jewish, and so I most people in America is Judeo-Christian, right? America is prevailing was founded by people who were Judeo-Christian, but that too based on the books of Judaism and the principles of Judaism, which I think Christ was a Jew. But uh but in Judaism itself, which is actually the foundation of the Bible itself, which is what is substantiate and ordains the Constitution. In God we trust, the money itself. In God we trust. Which God? God of the Bible. God of what Bible? The Holy Bible of the Jews. According to the Jews, your nationality is that of your mother. So you're actually a little bit egregious, not egregious, but not no. It would be ignorant to appreciate being an American, but that too based on the strength of the Constitution and the brilliance of the Constitution, but that too based on the name of God and the Holy Bible, but that too based on the Jewish people and the Jewish books, and that too based on the Jewish principle is that your actual nationality and creed is inherited by means of your mother. So according to Judaism, I would be a white American. What is inheritable about me in terms of allegiance to a people, nationality, creed, um, and on like that in strict Judaism, which is the foundation of the Bible, which is the foundation of the Constitution, which is the foundation of America. You're your mother's son like that. So I would be exactly an American according to that line of thought. Um, Similar to even Judaism itself. In the actually from that very logic, Judaism, even though you have a lot of awesome revere for the father in patriarchy in Judaism, like in the Holy Bible at least, I can't speak as a Jewish person, but it's the Holy Bible. Still, there's something reminiscent of matriarchy in there, in that you are your mother's son and you inherit your nationality and creed along your mother's line. But I still think that what we have as the Western patriarchy is because it divides neither along the father's line. But that's not all of like what we are. But I a little bit diverge with that. But uh so I'm just saying that what makes us oh, but a lot of things, it had been since corrupt, and it's very corrupt, but it's all owned by the church. So it's this very corrupt thing. But whatever people appreciate about you as appropriate or not, it's how safe are you with whatever you're able to stash and hoard for yourself in a corrupt, bogus game that's entitlement and private property and privilege and advantage that is tolerated for you to have by the church, but also simply owned outright by the church. Because anything that you have in art, even you yourself, you're actually owned by the church. And what you're calling money is private commercial paper. That's what real money is, silver and gold. But what you have for currency is in cash, is private commercial paper, according to Tashri Bey. So I think the Congress owns they print, but I think they also own the money, the paper. So if you deface money, you're actually destroying private commercial paper. So at no point is that whatever you got in your pocket there. I'm happy because I got a little $5 bill right now, but that is actually not yours at any point. That neither if it were money, right? If it were assets, it still belongs to the whoever has the gold calls the tune. Whoever has the guns owns the land. Whoever owns the land owns all the assets on the land. So anything that you have is actually just your privilege. but you feel very entitled based on your privilege, and you identify with your privilege, right? So everyone is a badass, but also everyone exactly identifies with their privilege. So everyone is a very privileged person because they identify as a privileged person, and they draw confidence based on privilege. So you're this very privileged person, but also very formidable because privileged people are formidable. There are a lot of, you don't want a problem with a privileged person, but uh but actually neither is your privilege actually yours. You're tolerated for it based on how much you cooperate and defer to the status quo. But then your the money, the real money in terms of assets like gold, silver, stuff like that, it's owned by the state who has the guns, and then the country, the church who has the state, who has the bank, who has the state, who has the guns. So anything that we have of assets, it can be seized at any point, even up to your very physical person can be seized, and they have the standpoint to do so. If a lawman couldn't do it, a mental health professional could do it in different ways. In different ways, you can concede your physical person if you're not prudent or appropriate in different ways beyond the limitations of just strict law. There's different ways people can get over on your physical person. Then the cash is private commercial paper. So if it's private and it's commercial, it's used for commercial purposes, but it's still private that whole time, not your private. So it's actually not, it's not your cash. The assets can be seized, and your body exists like as a they. When you say law, that refers to land, air, and water, according to Tashik Bey. So anywhere you have traffic that is currency, um, it's along the line. It's engaged the same. According to there's a man named Jordan something, Maxwell Jordan, and he says that the way that the law is framed and that it exists is that everyone is their own business, everyone is their own corporation, but also everyone is their own ship on the high seas, because we had still been on the high seas, land, air, and water, which are all the high seas, the traffic there upon which, and the ships, which are all under the control of the state apparatus, God, government, ordinance, decree, the church. So you're like Admiral Maritime Booty. That's what we all, and not to be egregious with that, but we're all actually like maritime booty. These very precarious, vulnerable ships on the sea, and how we're existing at all time. Anytime you're dealing with someone, you're transacting as two ships crossing in the sea, and you can be seized and overran just like that by the good guys or the bad guys, just like that. But the good guys had the last word, but there's still yet seafaring sailors and pirates. Um, so we're just basically tolerated for our privileges, but nobody gets their privilege. Nobody gets to have their privilege and eat it. So African doesn't get to have their American citizenship and eat with it too, apparently. But then the thing too is that human beings were meant to migrate. So a lot of people, you wouldn't know how to go back to Africa, and I don't think you can go back to one. Where would you go if you went back to Africa? I don't think you can go back to one place because you wouldn't be viable there as a human being. You have to migrate anywhere you go. And so if you went back to Africa, you should maybe say go back to a couple places in Africa and go back and forth between of them as it suits you. But Africa is actually under the same implications, and they're actually under the same apparatus because it's now globe. We're actually on a globe. We're on a lot of people don't know that we have been on a globe, and but this is actually globalism now. So there actually is no such thing as America. There's not a country of America. There's a corporation of America, and we all got a job there because we have everybody had to have a job there. Even if you're employed or not, you somehow got a job here if you're eating here. So America is this corporation, and just like any job, people are fighting at the job, man. People want somebody else to get transferred to the other part. Man, can we transfer that fool overseas? All our jobs are going overseas, but so much as we still got jobs here, can we transfer their ass overseas before they take our job here? And then even if our jobs still go overseas, then we so you want the people to go overseas who are willing to do the work here, but do you also want the job to go back overseas because it's just the same corporation and they can send that anywhere. But so people just want people asked to transfer to a different department, but not they want their job to stay here, but they want the worker to go to the other department. But the job is going to go wherever it's most expedient based on the local temperature, the politics. So Africa is actually just owned by the same globalists as America is. It's not actually a different place as terms as politics and economy go. It just has different. It's just a different suburb. Africa is a different department of the different corporation. It's just a different suburb. So America had not been a country because it doesn't have the harmony to be that. For you to have a country, you have to have law and order. Law and order is actually harmony, harmonics. It's a deeper principle of harmonics that constitute the actual Constitution. The Constitution is constituted by the harmonics of the indigenous people and their insights, including the Iroquois, also known as the Anansi, et al., among others, who were lifted and appropriated and dispossessed and disabused and and mocked and attacked for not attacked but at least the agreements were breached. But so America is not harmonic as a country, and so anything that you overlay on top of it, that you build on top of it, that you nothing can stand without truth. No person, no thing can stand without truth. No nation can stand without justice. No people can stand without justice. So America can't actually stand as a country until it would go back to the foundation and be equitable and humane about it. So if you're ordering people around not based on the Constitution, that's not humane. But also the history of America is not humane enough to be constituted as a country and be congruent in harmonics in true law without actually you that's actually a discussion of reparations to do that. And I'm not saying it has to be payouts of more fiat. I'm not saying fiat is going to fix things in terms of reparations of fiat, but real atoning somehow. The greater part of atoning is truth, allowing people to express myself. So me expressing myself on here is the closest thing that you may have to a country, because I'm trying to be very honest and congruent, and expressing truth and reconciliation is the greater part of atonement and reparations, and the greater part of establishing a country or an earth for that matter, a globe for that matter, because we're yet globalized, but we had always been globalized so much as we're on a globe. But it's the same globalists here, there, everywhere, Africa, everywhere. And so they just like you got different neighborhoods, you got different times of different privileges in different neighborhoods. So America had been one of the more privileged neighborhoods for certain people that got it nice here, and people are wanting it to be more of a nice, privileged suburb neighborhood, but that's not where the economics have gone. The suburbs have always things always change. Even the hood gets gentrified, but also the suburbs gets hood sometimes. So America is kind of going back to being less enjoyable for people that get the better end of privilege. But it's just the whole globe is just different ranges of the suburbs and of a corporate structure, because it's all owned by the same people. And anything you would do in different places, the implications, reality, and the transactions, they're reined in by the same globalists. Not to mock people's real background and flag where they come from, even America, even the person make the statement, I don't mean to mock you in America, but just to speak truth like that. But it's not actually a bad idea to go back to Africa, because I was thinking, I've been having some success training in fitness, and I've had sometimes like I've had when I was young, people would think that I would have like words that were beyond my age, and now sometimes like when I procure things, like different clerks will think that my appearance it would seem to be less than my age on my license. And that had been the case for me for a long time, because I even by the time I was like 30 years old on my license, people at my jobs, like a lot of girls be like, damn, you're about to turn 30, man. We are thinking you're 19 that whole time, but people actually still engage me like that as I just crossed 40. But um um but I still have some degree of fitness, and I was wanting to train. And like it's interesting too, because like about Africa, besides anything too, because like there's one of my favorite people personalities in media is he's an MMA fighter from South Africa. His name is so what is his name? Duplessis, the fighter Duplessis, right? So Duplessis, this is actually like teachable. Like for example, like someone told me on here, right? Go back to Africa. The YouTuber King Noble said something interesting. He said, if you have somebody, like sometimes you have different discussions of delineation. So that's a delineation discussion. May you please delineate yourself from us, you, this recent first generation American African, or several generations European American, but also recent American African European. May you please dispossess us of your presence, and afford us the grace of not having you around us in our midst, to go back to whence you came forth. That's a delineation discussion, whether a person would be foundational Black American to make that, European American to make that, or even Native American to make that. That's a delineation discussion. But another delineation exercise is whether you say foundational Black American, according to Tashik Bey, African American is a political coinage from the Jesse Jackson campaign and had not been present in America prior to that. They probably would have referred to people as Negro before that. But uh, African American. So you could probably say I'm Negro. You wouldn't be wrong or confused to say I'm Negro. Since Jesse Jackson, it has maybe muddied the waters. Is that what is a Negro? What is an American African? What is an African American? What is an African African? What is someone in Africa, America, any combination? What is Negro? What is colored? What is mulatto? What is white? What is all that? There's some nuance in that, and you have to look into different things to speak clearly. But whether as an African American or foundational Black American or African descendant of slave, from that position, or I think a more congruent word for all that has been recently popularized that I've become aware of is Majora, because the spirit of the American African experience is Majora. I've been in America for 40 years on my license, is what it says. That time I was having experiences around African Americans, and I wasn't getting onto like cool stuff that I wasn't getting like I wasn't having white privilege that time. I'll just say that. I wasn't in Africa. I wasn't like all the way good to go sturdy around African Americans, but I also wasn't having white privilege. But you could say that some of my plight as a person, I've done a lot of suffering in my life. A lot of my life ain't been sweet. I'm not saying nobody life been sweet, but I know mine ain't been sweet. My life ain't been sweet, and I've been in America without support from Africa, without support from African Americans, without white privilege, without African American privilege when it's cool to be African American. I wouldn't have none of that. But I've been struggling here. Just like imagine like someone there. So back during the time of slavery, right? When somebody just got barely off the boat in America, they survived that. Thank heaven. Were they in were they really African? Would you rather have them go back to Africa, or would you rather have them stay and have the country that exists now because they had to stay? But when they first stayed here, whether they were already a child, already an adolescent, already an adult, or yet born here immediately, I was actually born here. But are they actually African American? Are they part of the struggle? Are they slaves? If they were here as children, toddlers, adolescent, teenagers, adults, elderly, or yet born, but still here for the first time, are they already yet part of the struggle like that? To me, I would say yeah, because shit been bad here and it been a struggle, and I've gotten blessings and I've overcome different things just to be healthy enough and coherent enough to make this video. So I identify as understanding what some of the spirit of Majora is about, and therefore being Majora. But all those African descendant of slave, foundational Black American, African American, American African, and Negro, at least American Negro, which is still Negro, and African people can be called Negro. That is one thing. But if a child were born, if two parents were African descendants of slaves, foundational Black American, however recent as they're full-fledged American Africans. So say me, right? I was born in America. I have African ancestry, and I'm born in America. I grew up, I know nothing but American culture by and large. African American culture, European American culture, Tejano, Chicano American culture to some degree, Native American culture to some degree, but American culture is all I have experience of, other than my African friends who were also in America with me having American experiences and are more so familiar with American references. But if I understand myself as an African American descendant, or I'm actually not even a descendant of slave, I'm just a damn slave. I'm just an African slave in America, is me. But I'm if I had me a lover who's also African slave currently, a foundational Black American currently, uh, 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 Majora currently, if the two of us go back to Africa and I actually get to count. So will you allow me to be African American if I go back to Africa? Can I call myself, what will I call myself when I get back to Africa? Will I call myself African American when I get there? Would I not be out of pocket to call myself African? Hey man, I'm African, man. My dad is this tribe, right? And then and then they ask me one damn question, I don't know shit. Am I not a little bit disrespectful to call myself just outright African? But they actually do love people because like my family in Africa, they're like, man, fuck that, man. You still with us, man. This is still Africa. So real probably African people would accept you too. But also so would African American people. I met a cold brother, right? I met just to settle to run some for all, settle the score. I met a brother. He was so his mother. So my mother is white American and my father is African immigrant. This man, his mother was African American of many generations, and his father was African immigrant. So is he actually an American? If his mother was African American of many generations, and his father is African immigrant of one lifetime, would you be so much as to order him back to Africa or to call him less than African American or American at all? Would you be, would somebody not check you even on my live stream? Would somebody not check somebody to say that this brother over here that I know from when I did like 1099 word delivery and I met him at large, he said that he had dreads too like me, but he said that his mother was African American of many generations from the East Coast, and his father was first generation African immigrant to America. Him himself being born in Africa, is he not American? Is he not African American? Is he not African? Could you say such a thing online and not be blasted out of somewhere by with blowback? But me, my mother is European American of many generations from the Midwest. My father is African immigrant to America. So you could say that we're actually almost the same lineage, just inverse, because his mother is a black American of many generations. My mother is a white American of many generations. His father is an African immigrant. My father is an African immigrant. Which one of us is more or less American or African American or versed in the culture? Because that would be maybe the only difference is our exposure to culture. But you could say that we've each had different iterations of exposure to culture. He had a lot of friends that were like white Americans, like he was kind of like he was clicked up with like a lot of people that were white American, and he was viable in those settings. I don't have a lot of friends that are white American because I don't more so people tolerate people that agree with them, and I'm not disagreeable, but my thought process isn't as it doesn't make as much sense to people that are white American. So I don't actually have friends like that, but he does. So I actually more so think like on that African American subjects type of time, and I actually render statements like that. He more so affiliates and has affinity with like white Americans. Not that he doesn't probably also have African American friends, but just to show you some of the sophistication of identity. But then if I agree to go back to Africa, but you'll let me be African American so that I don't seem bogus when I get to Africa and I don't know nothing because I've never been there before except as a child, and I was just less than five for less than half a year, a quarter year. I was in Africa as a boy on a reservation. But whether I go there with an actual American African partner of your liking from this lineage, or she would go there of another African American of your approval who you may also want to go to Africa or not, even though a lot of our infrastructure and a lot of our blessings in America are from American Africans. If they go to Africa as African American, full-fledged, sanctioned, sponsored African Americans, according to both African Americans and white Americans, and maybe Africans too, they're now full-fledged FBA in Africa, and then they have a child born there. Is that child foundational Black American, or is that child African? Then if that child goes all the way through school there with experiences with children there, and then at the point at maybe at exactly the point that the very day that they would become able to vote, like say I don't know what the age of voting is in any country in Africa, but say we're both 18 in Africa, uh, coinciding with the completion of high school, because I know high school is different when my dad was there. It's a different structure of like the timing of it. But if that child reached the age of majority and migrated back to America exactly when becoming an adult, but having experiences and nothing but experience of Africa with parents who are foundational Black American, and it's questionable whether that child is African, although their parents are foundational Black American, but their experiences are that of Africa, and they may identify as they know nothing but Africa. Then when they get back to America, that child, whether they're with their parent or not, as you would have me go back to Africa or not, is that child now, having been born to foundational Black Americans full fledged in Africa, having nothing but experiences of Africa with some small probably references to America based on their parents. Then they get back to America, but have not yet experienced America, although their parents are foundational Black American. And are they now again foundational Black American, or are they African? And had they been in fact African and then transitioned back to foundational Black American, or had they been at once foundational Black American that whole time, or African that whole time, and FBA that whole time, and not? So that's like some of the sophistication of identity, but it's not just, that's how profound we are as human beings, is that you actually can't put human beings into a box. You can't put people neatly into a box as ethnicity, culture, creed, lifestyle, gender, orientation, appearance. You can't that neatly discriminate human beings, because those constructs are social engineering, and social engineering is not as profound as what it means to be and get to be human. Um, but um, but this person, but then the other side of that is that, like, then you'll have someone like say Izzy Stylebender, the fighter, Israel Adesanya. I think he was born in Nigeria. I think he has experiences from Nigeria that he can remember. His father was well to do in Nigeria. Then he migrated to New Zealand by like the time he was very young, and he lived a pretty, like, he was well cared for his upbringing, and he actually had like people to look after him, like I think nannies and stuff. But his father was also interested in his education and afforded him opportunities of education, and even like fighting, which is another form of education. So he became a very formidable fighter, and he had like a tattoo of Africa, but he hadn't lived his whole life in Africa. He probably didn't have as much. He might have had family in Africa, but probably not as many friends and lovers in Africa, and memories of Africa as Duplessis. Duplessis is I think he might be what you call a Boer. I think, like, I think I would guess that he might have British ancestry or maybe Dutch, but he's in South Africa, and he was born in South Africa. He's a European, white European, born in South Africa. He may have a few iterations of African ancestry, European ancestry upon Africa. I don't know that much. I would imagine that. But he's very firmly rooted in Africa, proud of Africa. His ancestors yet too did come from Africa, because we're all from Asia, Asia Minor first, then also Asia and Europe and America. But before all of that is actually Asia Minor, where you're calling Africa, even Duplessis too. His ancestry is not less than as much from the only actual difference between Duplessis and the most fundamental difference between Duplessis and Israel Adesanya in terms of strict ancestry going all the way back is just their complexion, because they're as much of African, because everyone came from Africa. Even whoever made the statement, hey, go back to Africa. Hey, you come with me, man. Let's figure that shit out, because we're both our ass are from there. I grew up with some sturdy friends who were Native American in America, and they always be like, my friend who's Native American, my friend Jay, his daddy was one of the people of northern New Mexico, and his mother was European American, but she was very interested in other cultures. Like, she spoke fluent Spanish, and she had affinity with Native people. But my friend was at least half Native, and he would be like, "Man, we're soul brothers from Africa, man. Don't you remember that? Don't you remember we had come from Africa?" He was proud to be a Native American. He was a beautiful person. He was beautiful as a Native American, but he's like, "But you know we had been from Africa, right? Soul brothers, right? No, no, we're brothers like that, man. We're brothers from Africa. I remember that. You can't remember, but I remember that." But he actually made that reality because he treated me like his real brother his whole life. He, as much as he would be like making his own reality to say that, or like you might say delusional, but for children is beautiful. When children are delusional, it's beautiful. When adults are beautiful, it's sad, or delusional, it's sad. But he was actually that much of having faith. Like he actually kind of meant that. Like, no, you and me are brothers from Africa. Remember? Don't you remember that shit? Before all these stupid school books and shit, before even my people from Africa too migrated here to America too. You don't remember that? We have been brothers from Africa. Remember that? My homie Jay said that. Then I'll meet like recently, like this year, I met a beautiful native woman in the northern reaches of America of Minnesota when I was traveling, and she was like, wait, man, I feel like we're related. Like I feel like she felt an affinity with me that she couldn't quite grasp. What they're both reaching for is that a lot like different people have different like blessings, but a lot of people who are indigenous Native American, they're deeply in touch like with their instincts and with their environment and with other people. And that these brothers, these Native American brothers and sisters that I've had friends with, they're actually feeling something that they're talking about. They're half kidding, they're half playing, but they're actually feeling something of affinity. Why do you remind me of me? Or these other people who are me, why do you remind me so much of me like that? A Native American brother or sister said that to me at least once as a child, and then he lived up to that his whole life. And then recently a woman said that. It may be because we had all yet been the same people, and we actually are yet brothers and sisters, all of us included, African included, European included, Asian included, Native American included, Australian included, all really actually from Africa like that, emanating like that. But just the trajectory of it is sophisticated, but you can't actually peg people for anything. You can't peg where people are from or where they belong or how they move if you're being honest. The only way you can do that and actually sleep tight at night is to tell yourself a story, is to harmonize with the church, the auspices of the church in terms of private property that they afford you, that they also own, and that they tolerate you for, and then also your ability to do egregious things to yourself and others, and then reckon your conscience, because we're always honest beings that whole time based on their notions. um uh um you're just but it take cognitive dissonance to actually to opt to really believe in that own story. But what I was saying about the Bible is that, like, this idea about shirk is that the real greatest person in this life does not does not does not suffer associates. I said in a video prior to this one, I'm not trying to get on with nobody. I'm not trying to be. If I had a way to do so ethically and actually get a way to count that, I would rob Batman's ass. If I was robbing, I would be robbing Batman's ass. If I had the opportunity to do so, and I could come up on the Batmobile, the Bat Mansion, the servant, the different cool stuff, the esteem, the skill, the grit, the mindset, the frame, the health, the uniform, the connections of Batman, I'll do so, and I wouldn't lose sleep about it. Fuck that. Fuck that. I fuck it. Cause I don't like associates. I don't like associate for nothing. I don't like to associate with nothing. Not even the holy book, not even the Messiah. I don't like to associate with that stuff because it hadn't been me. It had been my choice. No, man. The greatest person didn't send his son for me. He sent me for me, as me. Good to go like me. Make my own decisions like me. He sent me to St. Paul. That's where the big dog sent me. I'm saying that. Big dog. Dog, big dog, just dog. God's backward is spelled dog. Dog, dog, just dog. Dog have let me be here. He let another dog in. He let me in here. He let me in here. And he didn't, I didn't, he had probably had other sons, all Rolling Stone. We ain't seen to have been rolling, all got different sons. My son, his other son that I know of that looks like me is a great person, but he's also a jackass to me. He's not helping me for shit. He's not coming over the Calvary for shit. He's the one sending me over the hill, but he ain't coming up behind the hill to help me for shit. Kick me the hell out of mom's car just like that. Don't give a fuck about it. Don't give a fuck what happened to you. Yeah, your ass got shot at last time too, right? Fuck you. Get out of here. Oh shit, you got shot again? Good motherfucker. I hope they hit you next. Heaven forbid. Don't even talk. That ain't even funny. But my brother don't give one. My brother don't give one less about me. So your dad got this other son over here that care about me, that about to die for me before he ever met me and shit. Man, you keep your other sons, man, good to go. Cause dog sent me as me, also little dog as me. I'm accountable for my own actions like that. Nobody's accountable for me, not even my own dad's other son that I know of, and maybe that in spirit. No one's accountable for me. No one's coming for me. No one had been in before me to clear the way for me, because I had to get through a lot of shit. I got through a lot of shit going head first with through a lot of shit, and I still appear like this. And I had nobody with me like that. Hell no. As an adult, hell no, because I wouldn't have no other way. No associates. So the greatest in this life would not suffer an associate, according to some face of India, and also according to the Quran. Not to conflate that or to appropriate that, but it's appreciated that the greatest in this life doesn't suffer associates. Isn't about to pay for someone else's bullshit, or isn't about to have someone else get paid for or pay for the awesome things they do. Nothing of an associate. No associate. A name, an actual name, a good to go name, a functioning name with no associate, none whatsoever. None whatsoever, no associate whatsoever. When you see me in these videos, you don't see me with any associates whatsoever. I'm not paying fealty to no associate whatsoever. I'm not trying to be like nobody whatsoever. I'm not trying to be with nobody whatsoever if it ain't about one of us bending over or not. For as long as it's fun. And then after it's fun, fuck out of here. That's what you would have me do, but I'm saying to you too. I learned just like you, fuck out of here. You too. Even the sexy shit, when it get played out, fuck out of here. I don't want you around me. Not for nothing. So no associate. But also to affix an associate to the greatest is actually shirk. So you're actually when you're actually saying the Holy Trinity, that's actually blasphemy. So it can't be a Holy Trinity. It can't, if you have more than one of something, that's an associate. That's to make a partnership with who's great. What can you think of a partnership like of a band or of a business where there wasn't actually something of contention? You part of being healthy around other people is that you actually have to be enough of yourself to be contentious. Like, so like if someone say go back to Africa, and then I engage like that, but it's actually for learning and equity, and I'm not mad at you, and I don't hate, because even as I'm talking like that, I don't hate people. I hate being around people. I hate associating with people. I hate being mixed in with people. I hate being code this and that in the same ride, this and that. I hate that shit, but I don't hate people. No one. But you can't be with people without fighting from time to time, contending. And any time that you fight with somebody, the fight is never over because the dynamic is there. Whether you apologize or not, whether you atone or not, whether you died on the cross or not, the dynamic is still there. That's why we have antinomianism, because everybody is accepting the cross, but the cross had also been apologizing. This person on the cross is about to apologize for that wrong shit. No. Wrong is wrong. Stop doing wrong. The fact that you victimize him, that you torture him, that you torment him, it doesn't actually change the cycles at play. It doesn't make it better. Two wrongs don't make a right. Pillaring, crucifying another person does not make a right. That's another redundancy. Two wrongs don't make a right. Not even the greatest person who became the greatest person without erring somehow, being pilloried, does not make a right. Two wrongs do not make a right. Even in two wrongs don't make a right. I don't think so. So all that two wrongs do is make an apology, which is also an accommodation, which is also a placating, which is also subsidizing, which is also what's the word for it? Enabling. Apologize is enabling. The man on the cross, the symbology of the cross, is enabling people to continue to fuck over one another and to fuck up for themselves. Antinomianism is the word for that. And it's a real thing like that, and it's a real problem like that. It actually is a problem for believers and non-believers. All faiths can have their shortcomings, but all that is appreciated as shirk, in that you can't actually you can't change things. You can't change something you did. Like they try to see, they try to. So I think that the Christian faith, it appropriates different parts of India, because in the gray area of the Bible is how did Jesus come by his, and to respect that name, still an awesome name, and the people who believe in that name, but the figure Jesus, he had these, he somehow learned a lot of things, and he had different styles of doing things that were very reminiscent of India, like the Sadhakas. Um, but uh, but even in India, but he also tried to override karma. So you're going to India, or at least the story is whoever, whether the person called Jesus was a person or an author that had solemn truths, either one of those would have been, you can appreciate, you can see the influences of India in that. And it said that any great student of faith will find their way to India at one point if they're congruent because of how much India has to offer. It may be the truth with either Jesus Christ or the lessons that migrated to the author of the Bible, if that's not also the same person. Because they say that the Word was with God. So you have the Holy Trinity, God the Father, God the Son, and the Holy Spirit. But the Holy Spirit can also be called Gabriel, I think, the Spirit of Gabriel. So you have God, Jesus, and Gabriel are also the Trinity, are also God, but are also the Word, and are also therefore the author of the Bible. So it wouldn't be actually egregious to say that Jesus Christ, whether literal or literary, literal or allegory, was actually the author of his own story. If he is God, then he is the author of his own story. So Jesus Christ wrote the Bible. Jesus Christ wrote the story of Jesus Christ according to the statements of the Holy Bible. The Holy Bible is written by is the Word. The Word is also God. Was written by God and is the first, present, and last action of God is His own Word. His strength and His power is His Word, is His bond. His promise to Israel, but also His Word is Him, is also the Holy Spirit, is also the Son, Jesus, is also the author of the Bible, is also the story in the Bible, Jesus, like that. But that influence is reminiscent of India, but it also tries to override what karma is, or is understood to be in India of old and present, is that karma, you can transcend karma, you can expiate, and maybe you can suffer karma. All you can do is suffer karma. Both joy and pleasure are different forms of joy and pleasure, are both suffering. So, and can soon lead back to suffering, for better or worse, for learning or destruction. But all is still suffering. You can do nothing but suffer karma, and it's as it's initiated, because the initiation is also part of the action, is also part of the aftermath. It's all one dynamic. You can't uninitiate something that's initiated. You can't uninitiate an action that's been taken. Not even if you offer yourself to be victimized, or you are victimized according to holy notions or righteous cause or pretension, you still actually don't, you don't change what karma is, because were you to do so, you would change, reality, the word. Because if you read the word, it's beautiful because it's congruent, it's true. But so is also cause and effect true. And there's a lot of principles of cause and effect in the Bible. It's also appreciated that the Bible is similar to like an almanac, or like an actual, like the older farming books, because there's a lot of principles of farming and animal husbandry in the Bible that are also part of cause and effect. So you're convincing the Bible, you make these statements, these decrees of justice and decency and righteousness according to cause and effect. That which you reap, you shall sow in due season. That's cause and effect. But so that's another way of describing karma. That which you reap, so shall you receive. That which you sow, that such too shall you reap in due season. That's synonymous with karma. But karma doesn't change just because you do something after the fact, even hurt someone. It still has to play out. So, but then, so I'm just pointing out some things in the Bible, but just to make a partner of God, I don't mean to agree with this, but it said that the only thing that's unforgivable, I don't know how you actually can have something unforgivable if Jesus is unerring, unscrutable, unflinching, pure, inalienable, unalloyed mercy, forgiveness, understanding, enlightenment. If that's what Jesus is, I don't know how you have an unforgivable sin, but it's said in the Bible, I think in the New Testament, that the only unforgivable sin is to affront the Holy Spirit. You can kill another man. You can sleep with his wife. You can victimize his family. You can steal his livelihood. You can do anything like that, and you can be forgiven according to the atonement of Jesus Christ and the mercies. But you may not affront, that is blaspheme, the Holy Spirit. You can blaspheme the Godhead, the Holy Bible, the Son, but you may not blaspheme the Holy Spirit and suffer mercy or see glory. You may not do such a thing according to the Bible. However, according to, and I don't mean to be conflating this or appropriating, but according to the principle of omnipotence, omnipotence, the Godhead, but also truth too, because we live by truth. And if you breach one, if you breach one principle, you breach all principles. If you breach justice, you've breached all the laws. You actually confounded, you contradicted yourself if you're not honest, congruent as a ruler. So if the greatest ruler has any associate, they're not omnipowerful, because you'd have to check them like that. If you're the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, that symbol, it's a binding symbol. So the Father is actually bound by the Son, is bound by the Holy Spirit, is bound by the Father. That's what that symbol connotes. And that might be some of the cognitive dissonance that people experience the whole life over when they go to church. You're saying omni-powerful, but why are the three of them stuck together like that, almost like they're checking one another like that, like rock, paper, scissors like that, like the checks, the balances, the checks of powers like that, right? The actual very principle of the Constitution, the checks on powers, the legislative, the judicial, and the executive branch, the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. That's not having the Godhead. What head can, no, anything with, even in the very church circles, they'll say things like anything with three heads is a monster. That's one of the things that enlightened Arthur Avalon, is that he was having a discussion with his teacher in England, his proctor, and some student made a joke about he that person was commending the face of India to in front of some Western students in England in the early 20s, late 19th century, including a young Arthur Avalon, Sir John Woodruff, before he had become a knight, sir, and then became writing under the pseudonym of Sir John Woodruff. I mean, Arthur Avalon. But a man was mocking India in like either a class of like philosophy or theology. It was probably theology, because they wouldn't tolerate philosophy back then outright. And until after some of the contributions of Arthur Avalon himself, who made an inroad for some religious tolerance the world over with his commendations in scholarship around yoga and Kundalini. But a student was mocking India and their deities as having like multiple iterations of deities. And because their deities are balanced in India, a male is not viable without the feminine counterpart, but they also have different aspects and different modes in like more than one arm in symbology. And a student was mocking that, and the teacher said, yeah, but your God has three heads. So you're mocking this deity because they have three arms, but your God also has three heads. And anything, and then later I've heard people in churches say that anything with three heads is a monster. Why we have to defer to God? But if God has to check in, if the Godhead has to check in with the Son or the Holy Spirit, then that's not omnipotent. If the statements of the Bible, which are also the Word, which are also God, which are also the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, ostensibly, but are also God, is that God is omnipotent. So is God omnipotent because God is triplicated? Two of something is bifurcated. The human body is bifurcated. It's two, it's duplex. But it's appreciated that God is different because God is triplicated. God the Father, the Holy Spirit, Trinity. But how may you be one unison? Because conservative, things become more powerful the more conservative something is, the more economical it is, the more refined. Sometimes the smaller, more gentle. The more refined something is the more powerful it is. Why also the atom bomb is so powerful. So that the most powerful bomb we know is the atom bomb. But atom more so refers to like the smallest. The atom used to be the smallest appreciable. It's interesting. Atoms are also triplicated because you have a proton, a neutron, and an electron. So the most fundamental unit of existence in its full form, viable form, is actually triplicated. Um, Atom, proton, and neutron. I mean, electron. I think electron used to be called corpuscle, but electron, proton, and neutron. So maybe I stand down. Maybe it actually is the Holy Trinity. Maybe it's the atom, proton, and the neutron. But I'm just saying that it would falsify the Bible to say that um, that God is less than omnipotent. But if something has an associate, it's not all the way potent, because you can check in. You have to check in with your associates, And you also have to be contending to have a viable relationship, because too much of an agreement, too much of agreeing with people makes a weak relationship, but also too much of fighting makes a weak relationship. You need a little bit of buoyancy of agreement and discord, because any combination of people or even beings, it's attended by in-group membership, in-group bias preference, but also in-group fighting known as internecine, which is actually the prompting of change and migration the world over. So there's always fighting, there's always internecine, there's always contention over borders, whether or not we had political borders or some other such thing. Human beings are always going to be interfering with one the other and prompting and excommunicating, expelling one the other. That's just simply human. That's not new to America, but also, so it's blasphemy. It's the unforgivable, even beyond the grace of the blood of the sacrifice, according to the scriptures, which are also God, which are also the Word, which are also the Son. Is that you may not blaspheme the Holy Spirit. However, the concept of the Trinity is blaspheming the Godhead, because that's actually falsifying the Bible, as to say that God would be less than potent, that would be less than isolated, less than total, to be separated, dissipated, triplicated, but then also to ascribe a partner, associate, again, to God. Just the standpoint to do that, the dynamic of doing that, the power differential of bringing on an associate like that. Oh, who's this new associate? Oh yeah, this is this and that one, and this is what he thinks about this and that thing we should do. I told him about everything that we do. This is our associate. That's shirk according to Islam, and that's also a sin. So I'm just saying that some things about like our faith and stuff like that, it can be like it doesn't actually stand to just a little bit of reason like that. Um, but uh um my so I got some feedback. I hadn't been watching the feedback. I like I appreciate anyone um who someone said you're on a mission. God bless you, brother. Thank you, friend. I really am on a mission. But just to be honest, my mission did start in the church. My mission started at the Living Word Church. The church that changed my life was called the Living Word, and it was called Souls at Any Cost. It was to win people, to inspire people to be the best that they could be, to experience life and get away from some of the snares that we can be to one another as men and women when we're incentivized by money. That's the standpoint of that, and I still subscribe to that. So this is actually you're not really somebody's friend, and you're also not someone's partner unless you're willing to challenge them where it'd be appropriate, because you both become better from the challenge if you can yet respect one another. So if there was a person, there likely have been at least one person that is Jesus Christ. And then also there are a lot of people who have been willing to die for that, and also willing to put themselves in jeopardy, and sometimes also die for helping others based on the name of Jesus Christ. So that's a beautiful name in history, in lineage. It is like that. um, I think that sometimes the church, as a political body, but also as an economic body or interest conglomerate, they have maybe appropriated, borrowed, and used the story of a real authentic person and different people like that who have done things in the name of at least one authentic person that we can estimate has existed, to go in a different direction, and because they're still human, they're still fallible. But no one and no thing is good or bad. But the principle of being, it is true that to get, I've said something like, I actually got excommunicated from a church for attempting to say something that occurred to me, which is that true love is to regard the best interests of another person with your heart. That occurred to me one time. That's actually not a definition or a term. That's a mantra. Sometimes you don't know what a mantra sounds like. It doesn't have to rhyme or be poetic. If you use a verbal construct to achieve a state of mind, that's a mantra. When that thought occurred to me, true love is to regard the best interest of another person with your heart. That inspired me to something that felt like rapture inside of a religious service at a Christian church, the Living Word Church, between New Year's Eve of 2005 and the beginning of 2006 at a late night service. But that's actually not different than what Jesus Christ himself said, is that to give, or what the Bible says, that to give one's life for another. There's no greater love. There's no greater love than to give one's life for another. And I stand down to that, because there's no greater love, but also no greater statement, which is also love if you live up to it. Is that there's no greater love than to give one's life for another person. I bet that even the brothers in arms, like the brothers in Islam over the world, that are about that life, brothers in Asia, brothers in Australia, I bet you any brother of any persuasion, they would rock with that. Is that there's no greater love than to give your life for another person that you care about. There's no greater love than that. But the way that you can do that, that I think that a person can do that, is to regard their best interests, but also to see them as yourself. The only way to be loyal to someone is to see them as yourself, not the same person as you, the same choice as you, but the same story as you. So the real people that you love, they're part of your story, and you're part of their story. That is thereby their identity, their experience, their blessing, their bounty. You're the best part of one another, the people who are part of your story. I've been through life, man. I did a lot of work, like some like thankless work, like serving my chronically ill father and different community members. And I amassed like a personal library of like a lot of harmony books and a lot of nonfiction books that like helped me make these statements. But I had to come up off of it for hard times. But I'll come off that again, right? If I had to, I'll come off a book, I'll come off a car, I'll come off a job, I'll come off a relationship. I'll go back to bald head, have been a bald head like that, bald head skywriter, have been a bald head like that. I'll come off of these dreads. That's gonna hurt a little bit. That's one thing I'll put up a fight about. Is like my damn hair like that. But because you gotta have things that you like about you to be healthy, and I like having hair because it feels like it make me more of me, and it's something that I like about myself. Not to sound conceited like that, but it's healthy to like things about yourself, so that you can enjoy, because you have nothing but yourself most of your life. So it's good to have things that you enjoy about yourself, or about sharing about yourself with others. But if I had to, I'll come off the dreads, I'll come off the beard, um, I'll come off a little bit about the Playboy. We're about to bring back Baywatch, and I'm about to be the only cast member out there just looking at the waves like that for 20 minutes like that. I'll come off of anything except for the experiences that I've had with people that I care about, that mean something to me. They don't have to be in my life. They don't have to be they don't have to be like, because we're actually not the same people as we were in the past, and people that were in our life in the past are not the same people that they were then. But that's still our story. So who people are now, that are no longer with us or still with us, who we had been to one another in the past, is actually our story, and that part, a part of who we are now, and who we are now still our story had been. So I'll come off of anything. I'll come off of even the ability to remember my story at all, or the people in it. But I'm not willing to come off of my story with the people that mean something to me. That's not something I'm willing to do. But the way you would be loyal to someone is that you understand them as you, as your story. But we're actually all one another's story. We're all the same, not the same story, but we're all one another's story like that. And that's the deepest thing. So commendation the man Jesus Christ and his story, and all people who have had commendation the man, commendation the Holy Spirit, commendation the man Jesus Christ, and if that's the same person, and commendation all people who have believed in anything to that level, and sacrifice for anything, or cared about another person on those wavelengths like that. Commendation, I stand down. It's just a discussion for insight and truth. And going back to Africa is not the worst idea, actually. I was about to say how, like, if you appreciate on Duplessis, Duplessis is a full-fledged African. He understands himself as an African, and he's not messed up about it. And he'll fight anybody to the death if he has to, for his name, his family namesake, and his ability to call himself African. Duplessis would, a European African. I think that there's something interesting about, congruent about that, true about that, in the fact that all of our ancestors exactly come from Africa. It's appreciated. If you think that your ancestors don't come from Africa, I wouldn't argue with that. But as far as I know, according to the accesses that I have of erudition, both in public school, mass popular media and culture, and private scholarship on YouTube, and in consulting excellent scholars at least twice, Morris Brooklyn and Tashreeq Bey, and other people in my community, and my father, I extrapolate that all of us came from Africa. So if Duplessis understands himself as an African man in ancestry and also experience, I wouldn't be one to differ. And according to my dad, you also had diversity in Africa of complexion. So you would have people as fair. My best friend from Africa was almost, both his parents were African, but he was almost as fair of complexion as Duplessis. And Duplessis, the actual blonde hair, blue eyes, pale skin, is yet part of Africa prior to colonialism and prior to human migration, or part of human migration prior to leaving Africa, is that you always had that genetic diversity. So he's not less than African for his complexion or his heritage going all the way back to Europe and back to Africa before that, or his present life. So that's just some of the sophistication of what it is to be African or not, is that we're all African. But I do like African, and it's actually really deep. It's like, man, damn it, your family's from Africa. You talk about Africa. Do you have, someone asked in here, nuts or popcorn? Do you have enough? Is your life enough of a movie yet? And do you have enough nuts to take your movie back to Africa and do some chapters about your movie in Africa, buddy? Do you got that nuts? Do you got the chops to do that? And you got the nuts to do that? Touche. I say touche. I did this whole channel, this whole video. You tell me to go back to Africa. I say touche. That ain't the worst idea. I'm not trying to be destitute when I get there, but that would be cool. Like, you want to do some fitness stuff like that? Go back to Africa, where people proud about being Africa, where different things are cool and getting traction in Africa. You probably got some sturdy people there. You probably got some sturdy gyms there. That ain't the worst idea. Go back to Africa, because I know shit ain't all the way good to go, even in good old St. Paul. Shit ain't all the way good to go or also always enjoyable. Because I more so enjoy, I like making money better in Minneapolis, and I normally find cooler things to do in Minneapolis by and large. But I'm not against St. Paul, but I was born here. But that ain't the worst idea. What's up with Africa, man? What's up with Africa, man? That might actually be my cousin right there. Hey, man, come back to Africa, man. So that's some real ass shit. So actually, salute whoever said go back to Africa. Salute you, salute Africa, salute America, salute the globe, salute humanity, salute Jesus Christ, salute Islam, salute India, Bharata, salute the face of Asia, salute the people of Australia, salute the whole globe, salute one and all who cares about another one enough to come off of anything for the best interest of another one. I'm out with this one. Peace.